Hi, Christina. This is Jessica Bastian with with Illinois Central College and the Forward Focus Conference. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear
Oh,
me?
I can. Yep. I'm
Okay.
gonna go ahead and make you a co-host, and I'll make Samantha and Janice co-hosts as well when they join.
Samantha's going to be in the same room with me, so we're just going to use this one account. And
Okay,
then Janice will be logging in probably here in a couple minutes
great.
because she's across the state.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Do you know, are you going to want to address questions as they come up in chat, or are you going to want to wait until the end?
Probably till the end.
Okay,
I'm going to be sharing my screen, and then Janice is going to look at the chat.
okay.
So she'll kind of moderate that a little bit. There she is. Hey, Janice.
Yeah. Yep. I made her a
Awesome.
co-host. Great.
Awesome.
And we have
Um,
Jim
and
West
then,
here who's also helping me as a moderator. So we'll both also be looking at chat.
okay, great. And one question I did have for you. Um, is there like transition time in between the sessions? Should we be wrapping up by a certain time?
There is not transition time, so we'll start immediately, but you do have the full hour. So you feel free to
Okay.
go until 1:30. Some of the other this morning we kind of wrapped up a few minutes early, but that was just kind of naturally.
Okay.
Um, so don't feel rushed. You can go the whole hour. Um, but if it wraps up early, that's fine too.
Okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get our materials set up, if that's
Okay. Yep, I'll stop sharing what I'm sharing and I'll just turn it over to you. I'll just say a few things right at the beginning and we'll try to start right at 12:30 and I'll introduce you and then really I'll just turn it over.
okay. That sounds great. And
Okay,
we've got a poll that we would like people to take as they come in, so we're going to have that up on the screen.
okay,
And I may just periodically remind people verbally and in the chat as they come in to please take the poll.
okay. And that's like you have that on a slide or something. You
Yeah.
don't want to, or did you want me to launch it through Zoom?
I'm going to do it up through my share screen.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
thank you guys for your contribution. I'm really looking forward to this presentation.
Oh, thanks very much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute for a little bit now. Hello to everyone who's coming into the session. As you get settled, if you want to go ahead and go to menti.com and use the code on the screen, you can go ahead and take our poll as we're waiting for the session to start. You could just
thank you everyone for taking part in the Menti poll. It looks like many of us are entering information for the word that we associate with research. Also data, databases, of course, learning. So we are just about to start. We want to start on time.
Hi, Janice, this is Jessica from ICC and Forward Focus. Can I just jump in real quick and give a brief welcome?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, great. Well, welcome back, everyone. If you were with us for the morning session, hopefully we've had lunch and we're recharged and ready for a great lineup this afternoon. Once again, we just thank you for attending Forward Focus. We want to thank our presenters this afternoon for contributing to our conference, and we're really looking forward to this session. So this year, our conference theme is the voice of the student. The voice of the student echoes into every corner of community college librarianship, but how do we make sure that we're really listening? And today we're going to hear from our presenters, or hear how our presenters serve the needs of their students, and we're really excited about that. Please feel free to type your questions into the chat box. I believe that they're going to address questions at the end. And really, other than that, I will turn it over to Janice Grover-Roosa from Western Wyoming College is joined with Samantha Cook and Krista Clement from University of Wyoming. And please, ladies, correct my pronunciations of your names. We're happy to have you here, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. We're so excited to have everyone here. Thank you again. I started to say to those of you who have participated in our poll, we just want to kind of get a baseline of what people think of when they think about research, because that is essentially the topic of our presentation today. And I did just want to say it is Christina Clement from UW, not Krista Clement, but that was an easy mistake. So just wanted to correct that before we get started.
All right, so if you've been taking our Menti poll, go ahead and just leave that browser window open on your computer or your phone. We're going to be doing some polling throughout the presentation, but we're going to flip over to our slides, and Janice is going to kick us off.
All right, welcome. So our presentation today is titled Serving Our Students with Consistent Information Literacy Instruction, a collaborative approach between community colleges and universities. Next slide. Right now, you're hearing from Janice Grover-Roosa, Library Director at Western Wyoming Community College, once again with Samantha Cook, Instructional Design Librarian from University of Wyoming, and Christina Clement, Student Success Librarian at University of Wyoming. Today, you will learn about the collaboration between a community college and a four-year institution. You'll consider opportunities for research and collaboration outside of your organization, and you'll examine potential research relationships within your organization and in your state. If you didn't notice in the chat before our presentation began, we have some different documents for you in our Google Drive. You have access to that. You'll find the slides in PDF. You'll find an outline of our presentation and a direct link to our Menti poll. Next slide, please. Now, we'll be talking about Credo or Credo Instruct, the Credo Instruct modules throughout our presentation today. So we want to be sure you all know who Credo is. You can read this slide that is from their website. So that's how they would characterize themselves. But just in a nutshell for us, Credo is a small company that provides different databases and instruction materials. We subscribe to the information literacy or Credo Instruct modules. You'll hear us talk about those, but many of us also subscribe to Credo Reference, and so you may be familiar with Credo and their reference database as well. Next slide, please. So we'd like to start our presentation with kind of informing you all how this collaboration began and how we developed the study. So this slide, developing the study, partnerships, methodology and significance, is kind of what we're going to cover throughout the presentation. Next slide, please. So research really relies on relationships. And one thing that we've noticed in through our collaboration is, and what we've kind of given credit to, is that building relationships with one another, with our colleagues, not just within our own institution, but with outside of our institution with one another, those are really the understated value. That's one of the understated values of professional gatherings. So with that said, we really do want to emphasize to all of you that you can reach out to us at any time, use our emails, because developing the relationships with our colleagues is so essential to meaningful relationships. The other thing I want to emphasize is that my community college, Western Wyoming Community College, though we do have some professionals and faculty doing original research, it's not part of our requirement for continuing contract or tenure. We don't have a true tenure, we have continuing contract. And so any research that we do on the community college campuses in Wyoming is really something we do on our own time or above and beyond. And because of that, research isn't really part of the culture on our campuses. Of course, accessing research is, but creating new knowledge and conducting research isn't part of our everyday. And because of that, I think for community college librarians, it can be intimidating to start a research project. So going back again to building those relationships, just every opportunity I have to meet with the university librarians or attend a function where they're going to be, or my other community college librarians in the state, that was essential to building this research. And we just really recommend building those relationships with your colleagues outside of your institution in order to really give birth to some wonderful research. That being said, vendors can serve as a common point of interest between institutions. So in this case, University of Wyoming and Western Wyoming College both had an association with Credo. We both subscribed to Credo Reference and the Credo Instruct modules. And so in many ways, that relationship with Credo was a great icebreaker, something that we had in common that we could talk about and kind of develop research ideas around that particular vendor and or that service. Next slide, please. So with any good research, big ideas start with small observations. So just taking the time to jot down or kind of archive in your own mind these little observations you're seeing, those are things that later can turn into really big research ideas. Next slide, please. So these were the small observations that kind of led to this research project. First is going back to that Credo Instruct. Credo Instruct, to give you more detail about Credo Instruct, it's a set of tutorials, videos, and other content that are combined together in a set of modules that cover everything from evaluating a resource to debunking fake news to plagiarism and citation styles. And it's a multimodal type of resource. So Credo Instruct, both the University of Wyoming and Western Wyoming Community College were using Credo Instruct. So we had this thing in common. And one thing that is notable about that is it was clear to both of us, UW and Western Wyoming College, that we were looking and or implementing an online tool to help mitigate the demands of instructional librarians on our campus. What I noticed as being the moderator of the modules on my campus at Western Wyoming College is that even when students were completing very small portions of the total module offered by Credo Instruct, they were still improving their information literacy competency. So again, even though they weren't completing the entire set of modules, they were still improving their score in the post-test. So that was something that I wanted to know. Is that true for UW as well? So another small observation. And then as we kind of launched our modules here on campus with Credo Instruct, we worked with different departments. And one of the departments we worked with was our first year seminar, first year success department. And we got them to let us embed some of these modules into every single section of first year seminar. So what I knew was we have this very reliable population of students to really assess, are the modules really worth their time? Are they worth our time? Are students consistently improving when they are using the modules? So we want to know what small observations you're making on your campuses that you think might be able to turn into a research project, either within your own campus or across institutions. So what are some small observations you've made that could potentially turn into research projects? So we'll give you all about a minute to respond. We just kind of want to know, what are you noticing on your campus? All right, it looks like we've had some really good responses so far. A lot of observations about students, it looks like, and populations of students that may need extra support. So these are all really wonderful small observations that could potentially turn into a major research study on your campus.
And we are going to flip back to the slides, but if you guys want to keep answering this question, you should still have the option to do that in your browser, and we can come back and look at it later.
Yeah, and we're going to also be putting all of the responses into the Google Drive so you can access them after our presentation as well. So after UW librarians and myself started to really talk about what we wanted to find out about our transfer students and information literacy on our campuses, we knew we needed something else. And that is when we decided to approach Credo. So why did we approach Credo? I mentioned before that Credo was an association we both had, both campuses. But to give more detail, Credo was also an obvious stakeholder in our research, and you'll learn a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But we're studying Credo's modules and whether or not they're an effective tool for teaching information literacy to our students. So they had something to gain from the research, obviously. And also they have capital as a corporation that our publicly funded institutions didn't or don't have. And then also it just kind of brought a balance to our research project. You know, UW, most of the research is going to be conducted there. They're the only university in Wyoming, so they just have a little bit of clout that maybe the community colleges don't have. So bringing in this third party was a nice way to kind of lend some balance to the project. So we approached them again because they were an obvious stakeholder. They had capital, and it kind of rounded out the balance of our research group. Again, just like the relationships we built with one another, the community college librarians, the university librarians, that was an important relationship to this research. But another really important relationship was the relationship we had with Credo. I mentioned before they're a small company and their customer service has always been really good. So both of us had really good relationships with the staff at Credo, and those relationships really helped make the ask a little bit easier when we approached them for assistance. Now, carefully stating the expectations about the research ensured high standards. So yes, Credo has capital, yes, they're a stakeholder, but that doesn't mean if the research shows that Credo Instruct is not an effective tool, that we're not going to publish that. So we wanted to definitely write carefully a memorandum of understanding between UW and Western and Credo, so that Credo knew no matter what our results were, we were going to publish those. And we just wanted everything stated very clearly. What is the expectation of every party in this research project? So we really do recommend an MOU. It really helped us keep things organized, and we just felt more confident moving forward once our MOU was complete. Next slide, please.
All right, so this is Christina, and next we are going to go over the methodology. So how are we running this study? So these are sort of the three research questions that we came up with initially, the things that we really wanted to learn from a study like this. So as Janice has mentioned, we definitely wanted to test the effectiveness of the Instruct modules. We want to know if they're an effective tool for community colleges to teach information literacy, and does it put their transfer students at the same or a similar level as traditional four-year students who are likely to receive either in-person information literacy instruction in the first or second year, or the embedded content from Credo as well. Second, we're always interested in how do academic libraries contribute to student success. So that's a big question for us. You know, just this is another way that we can really assess the effectiveness of information literacy instruction through, you know, things like transcript analysis and time to graduation. And then also, we really wanted to know if the transfer students from Western Wyoming Community College if they're more information literate than transfer students from other community colleges that don't have this mandatory information literacy component. And then we also recently sort of added to our questions. We want to know what the other community colleges in the state or that students are transferring from out of state, what are they doing for information literacy instruction? And I do also want to mention that we're trying really hard to come into this research with without a lot of bias. So we definitely see at our own institutions how the instruct modules affect students' information literacy. And so we're kind of trying to keep that bias out of what we're doing as much as we can. So who are we testing? We're really looking for 5 distinct groups of students. So there are 4 groups of transfer students we're looking for. We want Western Wyoming Community College transfers. We want transfers from other Wyoming community colleges. We do get a fair amount of out-of-state transfers from community colleges. And then we also get some transfers from four-year schools as well. And then we also have to test our UW four-year students. So we're looking for students who have a junior or senior status. They had to have started at UW as a freshman, and they had to have participated in a class that had an information literacy component or a library instruction session as defined by a librarian. So we're the ones who determine that. So the study essentially consists of 3 parts. The first being the student testing, in which we have them take a selection of the Credo modules, as well as a pre and post test. The second is transcript analysis. So that helps us really determine if the students that we're testing have had information literacy instruction or not. And what we'll do is we'll look at transcripts from Western and transcripts from UW. Because we don't have the partnerships with like every community college, it's a little hard to look at theirs, but we'll look at what we can and then see what kind of comparisons we get and if we can identify any correlations. An additional consideration that that we went through and that anyone undertaking research should probably go through is securing institutional review board approval. So going through the IRB. That was especially important for us because we are using human subjects. We're testing, and we're also looking at transcript data, which is potentially sensitive information. So going through that process helped us really refine our research and ensure that we were meeting the expected standards. And then, as Janice mentioned, doing the memorandum of understanding, the MOU, was really important so that everyone kind of understood what the expectations for the outcome of the research was. So we're going to talk a little bit about our testing, which is actually happening next week. For that, we had to recruit a really large pool of students. And before we kind of tell you what we did, we would like to go back to our polling and see what you guys have done, if you've ever offered incentives, and what you found was effective. So we're going to flip back to the polling and go to our next question. So have you ever offered incentives to students to increase participation in a research study or event? You can say yes, no, or I don't know. We'll give you about 30 seconds to do this quick poll. All right, so it looks like incentives are winning. We'll give you about 15 more seconds if you want to fill out our poll. All right, we're going to move to our next poll question, which should show up on your participant screen. We'd like to know what incentives are the most effective for your students? What gets them to show up? Food, always a big one. We found that pizza is really effective. Gift cards and food. So we'll take about 15, 20 more seconds if you want to send in. And if your response is the same as one that's already there, that's fine, send it in. So it looks like food and money and or gift cards seem to be a really big draw. And that's exactly what we found too. Again, you can go ahead and still send in your answers if you want, but I'm going to flip back to our slides. So we found that offering gift cards was a really good incentive for getting people to sign up for our recruitment survey. To do our recruiting, we received a list of all the incoming transfer students from our transfer office so that we could send an email to them directly. And then for our four-year students, we have a student announcement feature that goes out every Monday where we put a link to the qualifying survey. And in both cases, we heavily emphasized that students who qualify, show up to the testing, and complete the testing would receive a $45 Amazon gift card, and which was being supplied very generously by Credo, our partner. And as a result, we had an incredible response rate. We had more than 350 students respond to our recruitment survey, which was really important for us because those 5 categories of students, we were trying to get 3 from each to show up. And it may not sound like a lot, 3 from each category, but to find 3 students from each of those 5 categories who could show up at the same time on the same day and who would be willing to stay for up to 2 hours to take basically a test would have been pretty challenging if we had had a lesser pool of students to choose from. So with the pool of students, we, sort of divided them out into the categories that we were looking for. And we had anywhere from about 20 to, I'd say, 75 respondents per category. And then we would go through and select the ones who qualified, send out an email to approximately 6 to 10 students from each category, and then keep sending out emails to try and get enough to come to the test time. And as I mentioned, we're running this first test on Tuesday, so we'll see how it goes. We'll see if they actually show up or not. But that was a big thing. They are required to complete the test if they want their incentive. So hopefully they'll stay. So the test that they're going to take consists of a pretest, select modules from the Credo Instruct program, and then the post-test. So the selected modules that we've picked, they cover all of the post-test questions, at least in part. And it's things such as the research process, scholarship as conversation, choosing web resources, evaluating sources, primary and secondary sources, plagiarism, and search techniques. So this is going to be a long study. We anticipate collecting 3 years of data at minimum. As we mentioned earlier in the presentation, the Western Wyoming community colleges have just required or just incorporated the mandatory Instruct modules into their first year seminar, and the first instance of that was last spring. So we didn't get any Western students transferred in this year who had taken that first year seminar last spring, but that's actually what we prefer at this point because this year creates our baseline. And it's going to take at least 2, maybe 3 years to start getting the Western students transferring into the University of Wyoming who have taken those Instruct modules. So that's why we think this will be a minimum of 3 years. And as we've kind of mentioned, you know, what a wonderful partner Credo has been, not just in supporting the products that we use from them, but also in this research. Their funding is what's making this whole thing possible.
So hi, this is Samantha Cook now. And so to kind of wrap everything up, we're going to talk about, you know, why is this important and what are we researching and why? This is something that as a group, we want to continually evaluate. And I think it's important to continually evaluate that because we're always going to be adapting what we're doing. We may find out something and change what we're doing. For example, some other Wyoming community colleges may be joining Credo and using that, and that's going to adjust what we're searching. And so we're just being willing to adjust and continually ask ourselves, what are we researching and why?
So we're going to go over to the polls again real quick.
So we want to find out, have you done research with a community college and a four-year campus as partners like we're doing here in Wyoming?
Great, and if anyone wants to detail in the chat what you're doing and with whom, if you feel like it, feel free and toss that in there.
All right, so now we're going to go back to the slides. Okay. Never mind, sorry. So we're going to ask one more question of what information literacy skills do you want students who transfer out of your institution to have?
So we'll give you about a minute to send in response. You don't have to do complete sentences. You can jot down some notes if you want. Excellent.
Yeah, all right. Well, as Christina said, you can always keep adding answers, so please do that. But we're going to go back to the slides now. And so next, I wanted to talk about and address the question of why is this important? Why are we presenting on this? So recently, schools in Colorado published a foundational research study on transfer students in their state. So it was by University of Colorado Boulder and Colorado Community Colleges Online. And it looked at current services for transfer students specific to instruction and outreach services within the state of Colorado. The paper talked about the importance of the study contributing to the foundational research for the state of Wyoming. And so one of our goals for this study was doing something similar for the state of Wyoming and beyond, because there's foundational research always needed about information literacy skills of transfer students. So yeah, and then information literacy as a whole, which is such an important topic for us within libraries. And it's addressing the questions of, are we specifically looking to see how effective these Credo modules are at improving our transfer students' information literacy skills, and whether it can help us better understand the importance of this. At the time of the creation of our project, Western was the only community college that was looking to incorporate or had incorporated the Credo modules, but now that's changing. And so more of the community within our state are going to be looking to add these modules potentially down the road. And so depending on our data, this could help decide different groups within our state to incorporate these modules or incorporate something similar. For example, we have noticed here at UW the effectiveness of these. And so we've deployed the Credo Health Science modules this fall. And again, are noticing a help from those. And they are also planning on creating some business modules. And so I know we'll add those too, but this is just gonna further help us be able to fund that as well with our administration. So there's a lot of different elements that come into why this data will help us related to information literacy. And then our biggest hope is that it will let us know if we're missing something. Is there something in our instruction or instruction across the state that we are missing? And then relationships. As Janice has talked about, relationships are so important with this study. And this project deepened relationships for us. Christina and I are in our second year here at the university, and we didn't have that relationship. So building this relationship with Janice and other librarians across the state has been really great for us in our jobs here as well. Any project that involves people from different institutions is only bettering the state and bettering relationships throughout the state. And then additionally, it really developed that relationship for us with Credo. Our relationship could not be better with Credo, and we never realized how much support Credo offers until we really have dug into this project. And it's really allowed us to further our services to students with the support of Credo. And I know that Credo will only be better from the data that we gather. So next slide. So why does this matter for UW and community colleges? So one of the biggest, goals is data sets that we are excited to see coming from this. Is Wyoming better than surrounding states from like Colorado, Montana, etc., or are we lacking? And then are some Wyoming community colleges scoring differently than others, and why? So Christina talked some about how we're going to be adding that into our evaluation of what our community college is doing differently, and does that have an effect, whether it's these modules or other modules. And then are transfer students scoring better than four-year students at UW, and if so, why? These scores are just really going to help us figure out what areas we can improve and what areas we are really succeeding in. And then it's always understanding the student needs. Are we missing student learning needs of our transfer students? What are the information literacy needs of our transfer students? Do they score better in some areas than others? There's so many questions that we have right now, but we're hoping that this study will answer these and give us that foundation to build upon for our transfer students around the state. So why is this important for all four-year institutions and community colleges? Why are we talking about this to you guys? again, I don't think we can hound enough the idea of relationships. This has built such great relationships with us around the state, and it can build relationships around, like within Colorado, Montana for us as well. It's extremely important within states for community colleges and four-year institutions to build that close relationship. As Janice talked about, Wyoming is really unique because UW is the only four-year institution within the state. And so it's even more important for us to develop that relationship with community colleges. But we're not alone in that. Every state should have those relationships between community colleges and 4 years to support students in as many ways as possible. And then it's the idea of creating a community. We are a community and we can support each other in many different ways, and we're hoping this study can further that. And then just understanding the information literacy needs of our students. We can always do more, learn more, understand more about our students. There's never a moment where we're going to stop and be like, oh, we know everything. And so this study is just going to further and create that foundational research for everyone, because barriers that our students are facing are going to be similar barriers that your students are facing. And so things that we find might be helpful for you to understand. And it's just furthering the conversation about information literacy and transfer students from community colleges to four-year universities.
All right, so this is our contact information, and we welcome any and all questions after the fact. If you do have questions, go ahead and send them into the chat. And we will go ahead and answer questions from the chat while you guys take our final poll. So this is really similar to the first one we did when everyone was coming in, but we would like to know what you think of now when you hear the word research. So go ahead and send in your thoughts and send your questions to the chat, and we'll do our best to answer those. And like we've mentioned, we will put the results of all of these Menti polls in the Google Drive, and we'll put the first and last one next to each other, because sometimes it's really nice to see how things can change in just 45 minutes. And yeah, if you have questions, send them into the chat. Janice, if you have anything to add as well, feel free to jump in.
Hi, everyone. This is Jessica again. It is interesting to see how the word cloud or the poll results sort of change from before and after. So if are there any other questions, we can give people a few minutes to finish the poll and put questions into chat. But otherwise, let's thank Janice, Christina, and Samantha for presenting for us today and sharing their research experience. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. We were really pleased to be here.
Yeah, it's a great, it was very nice. It was a great presentation and certainly gave us a lot to think about. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm going to flip back to our last slide that has our contact information in case anyone wants to jot that down.
Great.
And it also has that URL for our Google Drive folder, where again, you can access the slides, the outline, a direct link to the polling, and then that's where we will put the actual Google Slides presentation with our notes after the conference is over, and we will put the results of the polling as well.
Excellent. And so on Monday or early next week, ForwardFocus will send out a link to a LibGuide page where we'll have all the recordings, this URL, you know, anything the presenters give us, that'll be included on the LibGuide, and you'll get that from ForwardFocus early next week.
Great. That sounds wonderful.
Great. Yes, and Jim just is putting in the comments, our next and final session is at 1:30, so just in a few minutes here. You do need to leave this room and use the access link provided to sign into the next room. So again, we'll give Christina, Janice, and Samantha another just big thank you, and have, yeah, we'll see you at the next session. Thanks.
Thank you very much.